Okay, thank you for introduction and good afternoon for everybody. We will start. With our introduction. So my name is Peter, and basically my background is in IT. Basically, most of my professional career working in the banking industry, and the experience from various positions, development analysis, project management, and ending up in architecture and enterprise architecture. And basically, I like to participate in the major transformation and major changes in the organization. So that's my background, and Mario can introduce himself.
So let's say about 11 years of experience in IT. I'm not that long in the banking industry. I started and was about 9 years in as part of a global service provider, where I started first with the support of Unix-like systems, then went through the positions as into the pre-sales organization and doing some solutioning there, and then move towards infrastructure architecture and cloud and overall enterprise architecture. Mainly where I uh, uh, focused my career was well, the Unix was a start, but then the solutioning in pre-sales and mainly creation of the whole solution package for our customers. So solution, cost, proposal, the governance. And then when I moved to the banking industry, I'm more focused on driving the adoption of technical debt management into daily routines, into the business, and also leading our cloud environment preparation stream. So these two areas are the main ones that I'm focused on.
Thank you, Mario. So what we will talk about today afternoon, basically there will be two sections. The first one, I will introduce our company and enterprise architecture position in it, and also so what are the key value chains or value pillars of the EA in our bank. I will speak this first chapter, and then Mario will guide us through the second part, which will be more deep dive into the technical debt management and reduction and all the governance around it. Okay, so about the company, so Tatra Banka, as Tamás already said, it's a member of Raiffeisen Bank International. The bank started after the revolution, Velvet Revolution here, so 31 years ago on a greenfield, and during this period, we managed to be number 2 on the market, and basically why this, or the important thing to think is that the other 2 competitors from the top 3 are former state-owned banks. So basically, all the clients at the beginning were in the 2 banks, and all the other banks started from the 0. And we made it to the second place already. And we are number 1 in corporate and private segments, and number 1 and 2 in retail segments. It depends with which segment we take. What's important to say that our Tatra Banka brand is tightly bound in the innovations for a quite long period. So we trying to push the boundaries of the banking here, but not only in the Slovakia, but also in the Central European region. But in some cases, we were awarded with the worldwide awards for the digital banking. The one important thing that I need to add to our bank is that it's operating two brands. So the original brand, or the brand that started 31 years ago, is Tatra banka, and this one is oriented to the innovations, as I said, and it's oriented to the, let's say, premium segment. And 10 years ago, we started a second brand. We took it from the mother company, so it's Raiffeisen brand, and this one is oriented to the simple banking. So it's aiming to the different target group, and this is our way to growth. But this multi-brand operation brings some complexity and some new questions and issues we need to take with. So it's also part of our job in enterprise architecture to handle that. Just the few examples from our innovation strategy. There are the last 2 years visible here, and what I would just pinpoint from here is that in 2020 we launched AI-powered chatbot, which is continuously learning new things, and also the platform for learning this chatbot. We introduced also open banking. It was part of PSD2, but we did it like a platform, and now we are opening API ecosystem for our partners that already are paying for the services. So we are trying to create additional services around the banking. Maybe the next thing that is here, account opening in the mobile banking is not here because it was 2019, but we introduced face biometry and completely digital onboarding process for account opening and loans. And now in these years we are pushing this capability from the world of to the world of legal entities. Maybe here is the here is the premium APIs. That is the API ecosystem, as I was talking about. And maybe the last thing I would mention is the soft POS terminal. So basically, for our small business clients, we introduced that those that are running the small retail businesses, they can use their mobile phone as a POS terminal. They do not need any other special device for that. So that's just to have a brief feeling about our innovations. And now I will go to the topic of enterprise architecture. And I will start with our vision of the enterprise architecture in the bank. And it says that we are, of course, steering the architecture. We try to influence our ability to execute changes in that way that we are quicker than competition. And what is the last but not least important thing in this vision is that we want to keep this ability to change in the long-term period. So how we are trying to fulfill this vision. First, maybe I will explain our organizational setup. So it sits within the IT, even though it's not only IT related task or IT related things that we are doing, but majority is related to IT. So we are located in IT, and the enterprise architecture reports directly to CIO. So we have very close link to senior management. That's how we can easily discuss and push forward the strategic topics. And to the bottom, we have links to other types of architects, so business architects, solution architects, and infrastructure architects that are spread along the organizational structure. And even though they are not in the line structure, under our umbrella, we have quite strong metrics relationships to them, and we can work with them in a very strong way. Okay, so that's where we are sitting, and now we can go into the key value streams. And we will talk today about 3 of them. The first one is directly connected to the vision. So we want to support the IT change delivery, to support this ability to change. And we will talk a little bit about this. The second one is also related to the vision, but to the second part, so cost allocation and cost management, and it's related to the more long-term view. So we help to govern the costs of our architecture, so we are able to run it in the long term, and we are not putting all the money just to the operation, but we have still enough resources to change, to invest. And the third one is kind of related to both of these first ones, and it's like debt management. So everywhere in every organization, I believe there is also something that is not in ideal state, and if we can manage these debt items the rational way, we also keep our ability to change quite high, because we are preventing us from digressing to the very tough streets with the dead ends or kind of barriers that it's hard to overtake. So these are the 3 value pillars. First, before I deep dive into this IT change delivery, I need to say that all of these values can be realized thanks to the to data about our architecture. So basically, I say always to my colleagues or anybody that I'm discussing with, that if we want to steer our architecture as is written in our vision, we need to see on the data how it is performing, what's the state, what's the current state, what was the state yesterday, and where we are going tomorrow. Without seeing this data, this information, we will just use our feelings. And the data are realized in our architecture repository, and this allows us to measure our architecture and to communicate it in the very structured way. So what's important to say that we stuck from the very beginning to the standard. So we chose Archimate language, and this provides us very easy communication between the architects on one side that are mostly contributors to that, and the stakeholders on the other side that are usually the readers or the consumers of that information. So all I will talk about in the next slides is relying on the proper and high quality architecture data. And we are using BiZZdesign tool as you probably realize already from the agenda. So so IT change delivery, and where are the steps, or where are the parts where the architecture creates the value and plays a role. So the first portion of value is that, okay, our architecture process and our architecture repository allows us to document our landscape. So we have very standardized, very readable, and very structured documentation. So everybody new enters the community or the company, he or she can very easily understand what is needed because it's well documented. The second part is that because all the information is there in a high quality and it's readable, we prevent us from rotating in the process of basically from the mistakes in design or from omission in design, that we just forget about some integration or some data or something, because everything is very clearly visible. And if the solution architect that is preparing the solution just look on the data, he or she hardly forget about something. So it prevents us from rotation and from later slowdowns in the process, which improves delivery time, of course. The third thing I already mentioned, that is unified language. So everybody around can easily understand what we are talking about and can easily read what we try to say. Then the next piece of our architecture involvement in the change process is architecture review. So basically, it's about the architecture review board that I believe it's pretty common concept. And this one allows us to check every solution, to review it, and to adopt all the good practices into the solutions in the very smooth way. So basically, architects, even though at the beginning they were considering this review as a unpleasant control measure, now they are considering as a very useful review that prevents them from making mistakes or something. So it works on the let's say pull system that they like to use this service. And if there is something that we find on the review, then the last thing mentioned here is that we have very formal architecture backtracking. So if there is some aspect in the solution design that should be improved from the architecture perspective, then basically the architecture is the very first process or very first area in the whole change lifecycle that is assigning the bugs to the solution. And very formal backtracking in this stage prevents us from very expensive design changes in later stages, because if we fix these bugs in this stage, basically it means changing the documentation, changing the repository, or changing some documents, and it's quite cheap. So these are our intervention in the IT change delivery process, and all of these interventions are improving this process towards our vision. If you have any questions, just as Tamas mentioned, write it to the chat, or or maybe you can ask directly. There will be also a section at the end, but if you are in the context now, you can use this opportunity to ask directly on the slide. It's up to you. Okay, the next pillar is the cost allocation, and basically talking about this, we need to understand that managing the costs, it's similar to the onion. We can go through the layers, and every layer have some advantages and disadvantages, and basically they go opposite directions. So the top layer is on the IT procurement side, where it's very easy to execute this. It's just negotiation, but the benefits at the beginning there could be some benefits, but at some stage that it just exploits the potential of this technique. So then the next layer is we call it internal cost saving. So exploring opportunities, how to optimize, how to find some synergies within the IT. So basically optimize infrastructure or optimize some integration and these kind of things. But also it has some limited potential to do, and it's more complicated to execute it. The one level more complicated execution has a joint business IT saving activity. So changing the business processes and business services that way that they will be more optimized. But maybe here is a more potential because it's about getting rid of old services or synchronizing the similar services to the same infrastructure and same applications. And what we were trying to do is to also unlock the last layer, which is to provide very deep dive data and drive thinking about the deep restructuring and innovation of our business. And how we did it is basically written here. We used our architecture repository and prepared very close view on how the costs are assigned to everything that business is doing. So as you can see here on the right side, we used our architecture model, and on the top side there are some application, or above them there are some business services. And we see in the model that all the three down, what these business services is, what these applications are running on, what they are using, what components are needed to do that. And if we assign the costs to all of these components, we can get something like this in the middle of the screen, which is kind of deep dive cost structure that is transparently visible, and everybody can look at it and try to think about which components or which aspects of the service, of the business service, of the application could be changed, because we can easily link the impact of these changes to the costs. So we can very focusedly work with these changes. Okay, so these were the first pillars. How the architecture can in our bank is bringing the value, and now we are moving to the third one, and it is about the depth, and we will go into a little bit more detail there, and I will hand over to Mario, and he will guide us through this topic.
Okay, so hi everyone. In order to talk about more in details about the debt management and what we are doing and some processes, I think it would be the best to be on the same page. And firstly, to uh, to say what we within the bank understand under the term technical debt. So for us, it's some qualitative deviation from a standard. Um, it might be, for example, that the application is using some non-standard solution or tool, or that we have unsupported infrastructure and stuff like that. The thing that we are also trying to pass to the business, and what message, the message that we are trying to pass to the business is also why should we care. And basically there are two things. First, it's higher operational risk. So incident outages, you know it probably yourself as well, or you experience it as well. But if we do have an application running on a hardware that is out of support, it might happen that the server break, and to fix it and bring it up again might be a problem because there is no support. There might be some lack of spare parts and so on. So this is the first point. The second point is that if we agree to implement because of a pressure from a business and so on, we might agree on implementing some feature or solution in a quick way, in a dirty way. So along the way, sometimes into the future, it might get more complicated to implement new changes or new features to that application because of the dirty solution that we did some time ago. So that are two main messages that we are also trying to pass to the business um, to understand and realize why technical debt matters. Okay, I will walk you through a bit the process that we have established, and it has 4 parts. The first part is about debt identification. I will talk a bit more about this on the next slide, so I will skip it for the moment. So we need to first identify the debt. We will talk about the sources that we are using. The next one is debt classification. Each debt needs to have its owner. We need to know where this debt lies, within which application, therefore within which business domain, delivery team, and therefore we can say who is responsible for making the decision to plan it within the activities that are going to be implemented. The next one is debt reduction, and this step is it's a little bit in lower in the picture, a bit smaller text, but this step is supported by our demand process, which is acting as an umbrella for all activities that are planned to be implemented within the bank in some foreseeable future. And this demand process provides support and processes for all activities, not just the activities that are for improvements or new solution or bringing new solution, but also for the activities that addresses the debt. And the last part is the debt tracking. For these, we are using Jira to track all the identified debt. So it has a unique ID, and with all the information that we put there as part of the second step, the debt classification, we can then easily say what's the priority, who is the owner, and so on. Let's have a look then on those data sources that we are using for identifying the debt. And the first one is we call it end of support review process, and this is mainly about the stuff that gets old and it's without support, so about the unsupported infrastructure. And this is something I will talk a bit more in detail. What are the steps that we are taking there, and how we are identifying what is old, what is not old. And for these, we are quite heavily using our single source of truth, which is the BiZZdesign central model. The second source where we are identifying a debt is ARB, so the Architecture Review Board, as Peter already described a bit, because sometimes it happens that we need to implement a solution really quickly to gain some benefit or value, but together with approving this, let's say, this quick dirty implementation, we also register right away a debt, because we know that it will catch us up sometime in the future, but it will. So if if we agree on this community that this is breaking some of our architectural patterns and principles, but we need to break it in order to gain some value, then this is another source of debt. The third one is so-called acceptance protocol. There is a step of handover when the application is handed over from implementation team or development team over to the operations team. Operations team has some checklists that they go through if the application is okay, is using the proper tools and stuff like that. And from time to time, it might happen that the application is not up to the latest standards, and that is another area where we are collecting debt. And the last one is it's a bit different to the previous one, because we are realizing that it's important not just look back what we did wrong or what did get old and we didn't upgrade it, but also to look into the future, what can we do better in terms of modernization, and create a backlog this way. Okay, I think we can move on. Okay, so this is just uh, a simple timeline to show where we started and where we are now and where we want to get. In the end, we started with the Jira, where we say, okay, here we will collect the debt and record it and classify, and then we started to identify what are the sources of debt. So first we came across ARB, then we said, okay, we need to also somehow provide the reporting of this debt to the business. So firstly, it was just a manual work, Excel and PowerPoint, but we did some report and provided to the business, so business could get some more details on this topic as well. Then we did quite a big activity about the outdated infrastructure analysis, and we analyzed all the applications that are using outdated infrastructure and what impact it has on the application itself if we would do the upgrade of those technological components. And that became later our one of the source for debt. Then we said, okay, in terms of debt reporting, we had to put some automation in it. So Power BI in our in our terms is quite heavily used. So this was our first stop, and now it's I will show you how it looks like, and it's kind of a self-service now for all the product owners and business owners and everybody who wants to have a look. So then, as said, we identified another debt sources, so the outdated infrastructure, then the acceptance protocol, and we are somewhere here, and we are working on more things where we are taking the information from our central model, and where we can easily say which application is running what kind of technological objects in what state in terms of their support, so whether they are within the support or out of support, and based on that we can say, okay, this application is green or this application is red because it's already using some technological components that needs to be upgraded. Then we will have we want to put this end of support process rollout. We are currently in the process of like a proof of concept, testing and so on, but we will put it into live shortly, and I will show you a bit more details on that. And then the next steps, as already mentioned, is the application modernization analysis and backlog, or creating a backlog of that as we want to take it as one of the debt sources. So this is our roadmap where we are now, and we can have a look more on the visualization of the debt reporting. As I mentioned, we are using the Power BI, and we, as you can see here, we are showing how the debt size is over the quarters. Yeah, currently it's getting a little bit higher and higher, but it doesn't mean that that it's bad. We are just better at doing the analysis and the the so-called archaeological work, so we can better identify the debt that we already have, and we right away divided per business domain, and we are using the function so-called drill through. So when we select the business domain and we drill through, we then show the business owner a more detailed information, and within that business domain there are multiple teams, and each team is owning some applications, and therefore we can without a doubt say to which team the debt belongs because of the application, as we are registering debt based on the application that is affected by this technical debt. And I haven't put the slide here, but in this report there is a possibility for each team to drill down one layer more, and they can see there exactly just the information for their team, what kind of debts they have, for which application, if there was any activity already started for any of those debts, and so on. So something like that we are using as a self-service reporting for everybody in the bank, basically. And now we can go a bit through that end of support process. It's just one slide, but so you are able to read it. First let me explain you the timeline in the left upper corner. There are two things. One is R2P, which means ready to plan, and then QP, which is a quarter planning. This is basically a demand process. All the activities needs to go through some analysis and get to the ready to plan status. And then there is every quarter there is we have a quarter planning where we plan all the activities within the bank based on their priorities and so on. And our idea that we are testing right now is that after each quarter planning, we within EA will run this end of support process. We export the data from BiZZdesign, our central model, with the specific attributes collected for all technological components. So we are collecting like component. So this is then we can move to that lower part of the picture. So that was the review, and now there can be two actions. First, if we in the post processing of those data, if we identify the technological components that have just missing that are just missing the date for their end of support, so it's a straightforward action: update the model. But if we identified the technological components that have expired, these end of support attribute, then we register a debt. Dlh means actually debt. We register debt within our tracking system, and now the process kick in terms of we did the discovery, so we know exactly for which application which kind of technology component is the problem or is lacking the support. Then there is an analysis step. This means that this is sent over to application architect of that application, who will do a quick analysis of what's the impact on the application if we would do upgrade of the technology component. So do we need to do some development to that application, or can we do upgrade of the technology component without doing the development of the application? And that will basically tell us what the next actions are. If we need, for example, to do development or changes, or if we need to do some changes to the application because of the upgrade, then we will create an, well, we call it epic, but we will create an action, and we'll try to analyze it and prepare it into the ready to plan so it can go to the planning session. If that technological component can be upgraded and it has no effect on the application, then we will go through IT maintenance, use process, and if there are some other outputs, we can decide to leave it to debt life cycle, for example. So there are multiple steps that we can take from here, and that and these what we would like to execute every quarter. So now we are more or less on we have prepared the baseline, all the data, all the depths. So we should start with like clean slate, and each quarter we expect that some technology components um, will pop up that are running out of support, but it will be just a handful ones, so we can manage it through this process. And that's pretty much all from my side.
Okay, thank you, Mario. So now I can't see any questions in the chat, but now it's a good time to ask something. But still, if you don't want, or if you will come to some question later, it will be also an option, but now you have the opportunity to ask. Okay, I can see one question in Q&A. I will read it so everybody is having it. It's related to technical depth, and based on the definition, see the Archimedes diagram, you are meaning the technology depth. Do you have a plan to enhance the process also to the other category of depths, e.g. application, wrong functionality placement, wrong integration pattern, etc.? Okay, maybe I can answer. We call it technology depth because this term was easily recognized in our organization, and it has kind of buy-in. But as these sources indicates, like here, we record also the kind of depths that you are talking about. So, bro, if there is a functionality overlaps or yes, functionalities in the wrong application or data mastering is not correct, and some data overlapping, also integration. So usually it comes from here, but sometimes we find it out also in the different process. But yes, we are recording also these steps. So the name of our, let's say, discipline is maybe narrow, but we take it like in the broader meaning. Is this answer okay?
It is okay. Thank you very much. Understand.
Okay, you're welcome. Maybe some other questions?
If there are currently no other questions, we can continue with the live BiZZdesign demonstration, and then we can start the final discussion.
Good.
Okay, so let me turn on sharing of my screen. You should see my screen now, I hope that. So in the few next minutes, I will show you BiZZdesign platform. We have the selected use cases. I will follow up on the previous topic of technological depth. But at the beginning, let me introduce you the BiZZdesign company, if you never heard about it. BiZZdesign is the developer of the HoriZZon collaborative and presentation portal, which is a portal accessible via web browsers. You can see HoriZZon portal now. On the other hand, BiZZdesign is developing intuitive modeling and powerful HoriZZon environment called Enterprise Studio. As Peter and Marios also mentioned, one of the prerequisites for examining technological depth are data and their interconnections. The main idea of the BiZZdesign platform is to create a single source of truth. Single source of truth is the only one source of information and data over which all users collaborate. A single source of truth can be established if data from various systems can be integrated on a single platform, with the data flowing automatically at regular intervals. BiZZdesign offers built-in integrations of systems such as ServiceNow, Technopedia, Excel, SQL databases, and functions for importing and exporting formats such as BPMN format, Archimedes Exchange format, CSV, and so on. BiZZdesign Open API is available in a cloud environment and allows you to connect HoriZZon data with various systems. The Open API takes the form of HTTP methods such as GET or POST. On the other hand, BiZZdesign also has its own scripting language. The scripting language can be used for any change of data in the model package, import or export of data, or for connection to another systems via VBA COM objects. Portfolio management is also closely related to technological depth. BiZZdesign offers built-in functionality for portfolio management. Enterprise portfolio management manages the entire landscape, such as applications, projects, assets, services, capabilities, and so on, in one portfolio. Portfolio management is not limited to architecture models. You can also manage from other types of models, for example, BPM and processes or data models. In the first phase of portfolio management, you compose your portfolios. In the portfolio landscape view, which you can see now, you create an overview of the portfolio. This is where you determine the owner, your goals, or you can select your population. That means, in this case, the applications. These are all fictitious data. You also can choose metrics that we will monitor for individual population objects. Finally, we can define some charts that we want to analyze and choose recommendation options. In these recommendation options, we can define some phases, such as eliminate, migrate, invest, and tolerate, which are important for applications. The last activity in portfolio management is analyzing the results and formulating the recommendations for our portfolio. So I can turn on edit mode. When analyzing the portfolio, you can use the standard chart functionality. For example, you can filter the population based on the, let's say, attribute values and so on. You can add sticky notes, but the most important part is recommendation definition. Within the recommendations, you can define some basic fields such as description, priority, deadline, and so on. But the most important parts are subjects. There you can see the applications and defined recommendations. Based on the analysis results, you can formulate recommendations to improve the portfolio. These recommendations can be the starting point for proposing changes. So let's say in this fictitious data, we can see applications such as Informix, which should be migrated. Once decision has been made on what should be implemented, we need to plan specific projects to deliver the changes. BiZZdesign offers several tools for planning delivery of changes, such as roadmaps and lifecycle views. The application roadmap shows the planned projects to deliver the required changes and their effects on the application landscape. We can see how the number of application is reduced over time and which projects affect which application. In order to manage the risk of change, we can also view the project dependency roadmap, where project dependencies are explicitly shown in a timeline view. As you can see, the individual projects do not conflict with each other. However, the problem is visible in the applications included in the project, which indicates an orange color. And we can see the common scope of the projects. BiZZdesign also offers various analytical methods. So let's say I want to see the metrics and compare or see the interconnections of my projects and my application catalog. So we can see the metric. This metric is real time and live, so I can create relationships directly in this metric or delete them. Let's say I want to see what is the scope of each project, so I can turn on label view analysis. Or let's say I want to see the owner of each project. I can run a color view analysis. Or let's say that I want to compare the allocated project budget and current project cost. So I can run another analysis. Color view using an attribute allocated project budget and current project cost using a label view. And I can compare these attributes in real time. There are also other analytical functions such as tooltip view or highlight view, and so on. Another view of implementation and migration part is an lifecycle view. On the current view, we see individual applications, their life cycles, timeline, and legend. The available lifecycle profile stages and dependencies will most likely be sufficient for modeling lifecycle management. However, if needed, the lifecycle management profile can be specialized to define different lifecycle phases for different types of objects and so on. The strength of BiZZdesign is the connection of individual objects and the analysis of dependencies. The red line indicates a conflict between an application and the technology infrastructure on which it is deployed. So let's say we can look at the Cristobal application and we see the red line and we see that the Nginx, the infrastructure component on which the Cristobal is deployed, is in conflict with our application. So in this way, BiZZdesign automatically analyzes the dependencies between applications and technology infrastructure based on their life cycles. There are other interesting areas which BiZZdesign supports, such as customer journey mapping, risk and security management, categorization analysis, time analysis, or any other business analytical methods such as SWOT, business model canvas, and so on. Due to the short time, we will not go through them. But at the end of today's presentation, we will move to the HoriZZon platform. In addition to serving as a central repository and enabling user management, HoriZZon allows you to collaborate, analyze, and visualize data in a simple and fast way. So we can look at some fictitious demo. Let's say this one. Sorry. And we can look at the business model canvas example. Everything you see in the diagrams and views in the HoriZZon platform are dynamic objects that the user can interact with at any time. For example, activities. Activities looks like purple static rectangles, and they are the purple rectangles. However, after clicking on one of them, the object of this, the details of the object will be displayed. Now, in the right panel, we can see all the attributes and metrics, documentation fields, relationships, or views which are associated to this object. We can also inspect this object. In addition to the properties which we saw in the right panel, now we can see also the automatically generated spider chart. I can export this spider chart, and we can see some fictive object payment execution capability, and all the relationships that this object has within my model package or my model. So we can see the connection of this capability to, let's say, application interface, business process, and so on. If I click on the plus icon, I can generate another part of my spider chart. Or if I want to see fewer data, I can export from this object, and the spider chart is again automatically generated. In this way, I can analyze all the dependencies within my organization. HoriZZon portal also offers possibility of creating various analytical outputs in a real time. So we can look at the example of capability model, and we can choose some object. And again, in the right panel, we can see all the properties of this object. Let's say I want to analyze capability classification. I can choose this attribute and run a color view. At the bottom, I can see the legend. Then let's say I want to see also maturity baseline attribute. I can run a label view analysis. And finally, let's say I want to see the cost license of each capability. I can run a tooltip view. Some of the, or better, however, sometimes looking at the data in a chart is more relevant, especially with numerical values. So I can choose some numerical value, let's say cost license, and generate a chart in real time. Then I can go to settings. Let's say I want to change the type. I can select the tree map, and then I filter only the top 10 most expensive capabilities in my fictitious demo. Again, each object is a dynamic object. I can interact with it. The wider enterprise design community can interact with the information produced. A pure HTML5 interface is provided for quick interaction. BiZZdesign also supports workflows. It offers default workflow, and customer can create additional custom workflows according to their needs. Let's say I want to request approval for my roadmap. So I can click on the workflow, choose approval workflow. This is a custom workflow. I have to fill each field. So let's say I choose me and approval me. Then I can choose some dates, add some summary. Finally, I can submit my workflow. Once I refresh my environment, BiZZdesign will notify me that I have waiting workflow task. I will also receive an email notification. On this page, we can see all the workflows that have been created in our environment, and we can see a pro workflow with one waiting task. So I can click on the detail. Now I can see my tasks, my requests, and also group tasks. Finally, I can click on my current task. I can see another part of the forms which are included in my workflow, the associated objects. I can comment on them and change what I need. And finally, I can, let's say, in this case, approve. BiZZdesign enables management of properties of individual objects, including the setting of responsible person or time intervals for fulfillment or the control of the property values. BiZZdesign uses data blocks for this. Data blocks are properties of objects in the HoriZZon platform. For data blocks, it is possible to set responsible person or group of persons for their modification. On the other hand, data blocks can also be filled in automatically and continuously using the OpenAPI. So let's say I can, or I want to choose some application. I go to catalogs, applications, and I want to set a default editor for the data blocks of my application. So I can select some group or person. I select me, and then I can set up a start date, let's say last week, and repeat weekly. And I can confirm. The HoriZZon environment again notify me once the data task will be ready. I can see the open, closed, created data tasks, but I can click on my current update ITSM task. I can see my application and all the attributes that I'm responsible for. So in this case, I can change the values or submit them and finally complete the task. This is how the data blocks are working. Another feature that HoriZZon provides are dashboards. HoriZZon includes integration with the Kibana application, so extended dashboards can be created in a Kibana. So we can see the fictive application dashboard, and the most important part of Kibana is the interaction and dynamic filtering. So let's say I want to see only applications in Germany. And then let's say I want to see only the most critical ones. So I can get the results immediately. I see that Firetrack is the most critical application in Germany. We are at the end of a short demonstration. In addition to what you have seen, BiZZdesign supports other use cases, but the main goal of this platform is to connect all stakeholders in the organization and provide reliable real-time information to those who are involved. So thank you, and Tamás, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't know if there are any questions or comments in the chat window, because in my chat window there is no written lines, but maybe some questions were sent directly to the speakers. Do you have any questions there?
Not me. I can see only one we already answered, also in the chat, also in the QA.
Me neither.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in this case, all the participants can use their microphone to ask questions or comment in connection with the presentation. So please switch on your mic if you want to comment everything.
Maybe until we will be thinking of some question, I just will comment on the first slides that Jozef was presenting about integration of BiZZdesign. One example we are using, and it helps a lot, and it also speed up the process, is integration with Jira via API. So basically, the process is, or I can show you one slide more from the backup. Where can I explain more clearly? Okay, now you should see, and it's easy to explain it in here. Okay, basically, we are interconnecting between Jira and BiZZdesign. So first in Jira, the specification, epics, and capabilities are created by the business. Then the solution is outlined here. And then when the solution is outlined, then via integration through API, we create tasks, we call them features, to the feature teams, and they get from the architecture picture. So the picture looks like this. I will show you. From the picture that looks like this, and it shows the impacts of the requirement on every application and every object. And every colored object means some impact, and every impact is directly generated as a task to the Jira, so the delivery team can work on it, and it's very aligned with the architecture design. So there is no like noise by writing and reading documents. It's directly connected to what solution architect designed for the solution, and we use this API integration between Jira and BiZZdesign to do that. So it just was remark to what Jozef already said.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the participants? Please use your microphone.
So, hello, my name is Mate Segel. So it was really interesting, and it was a good presentation. let me start with that. And regarding the so the enterprise architecture, let's say, connects through with the solution architecture work through this tooling. This is the main process. I'm curious about that. How the collaboration process works.
Okay, I try to explain, but just ask more specifically if you want. One thing is that yes, as you understood correctly, the solution architects are working and designing the architecture directly in the tool, and so they are drawing the picture like one I showed with the colored yellow and green colored boxes. But by drawing these pictures and discussing about them, they are filling up the data about our architecture, and we have quite formal process or some stages in this design, and at the end, the last stage of this design is, we call it release. So after the change is done and software is released, we release also our model. So this is the one interlink that solution architects helps to create the data about the architecture. I mean, we as the enterprise architecture, then we clearly see the state of our architecture. We facilitate this process, of course, because we need to take care about the data quality. We need to educate architects how to do that. We need to provide them with some automation tools, as one of I mentioned, and some others. But yes, they are doing the work of the solution architecture. So that's one aspect. And the second main one I already mentioned is this architecture review board, where we also facilitate the discussion about the quality of the solution. So if the architect took into the account all the principles or the good practices and so on, and if the solution is good enough.
So you don't really specifically do a compliant review. It's a continuous process, and at the end of the continuous process, some collaboration or cooperation is involved through the architect review board, mainly if it's necessary or on demand, or if it's a bigger change, I believe. And but basically it's kind of like a semi-automatic, let's say, like automatic. So you don't do any specific review process. This is the process. Okay.
Yes, exactly. But one thing I would correct is that we are quite strict that every change above every other change than the small one needs to go through these two processes, like review and modeling. So there is no exception, and that's gives us the quite strong
Governance.
Strong governance. Yes, that's right. So basically, we one of our role of enterprise architecture is to govern this, and we are looking on data. We are watching the backlogs. If someone is avoiding this process, we see it immediately and we correct this, he or she, that this should be done. It couldn't be skipped.
So basically, and do you have, for example, reference architectures, or how did? That's when I'm curious. Like, the architecture design process, it has to be nowadays very flexible. Lots of changes are happening on the solution side. This is a very, very important part. And most of the architecture design is pretty solution heavy. You can't design as fast as the solutions are coming or the demands are coming. So kind of like to find a balance. That's why I'm curious about your process.
Yes, we have kind of these architecture outputs for, but only for selected areas, and so not all of them. We just select the areas that are either long-term, there is a need for long-term continuity in that, or there is a transformation area, or it's something, it's a very coherent area, and in that case we prepare kind of target architecture or something like principles for that area. But for the rest of the solution, we have just a common set of the principles that should be applied generally, and we are validating against that. And but because as you said, it's everything is changing rapidly, so it is also for us too hard to keep all these outputs up to date, and this is where review boards come into the place, because it's a kind of open community forum. There are some let's say permanent attendees, so the, let's say, senior architects that keeps the most valuable knowledge about the architecture, about the new trends and everything. But it's an open forum, open platform where everybody can join and bring his or her knowledge or ideas. And this platform ensures and give us the ability to capture or to adopt also something that is not written somewhere, because we can't keep the pace of changes.
What is the if you don't mind, I'm asking, what is the density of this review board? It's a weekly.
It's twice a week, but it's a slot. Twice a week for 2 hours, but it's a slot, so not necessarily all the times is used. If there is, we basically we provide a slot, and the people are let's say booking the small slot there. And if nobody books, then we just skip it or cancel it.
Let me ask something also. Unfortunately, I had to skip a little bit on last 20 minutes, so I'm not sure that you have already answered. But you have mentioned ERB, but ERB is a lot of time is something that's already ongoing process, and you are doing a decision on already ongoing, already decided, already started ideas. So what about the business ideas which is starting, or idea management? How you are participating on those things?
Okay, so we consider it depends, but let's say we try to follow the approach I will describe. But sometimes it has some variances, but we try to approach it this way. And the way is that it is a change, but it is the same change and every other, but in a very early stage. So we try to plan the work and plan we call it epic, like the one project, but the output of this project is either strategy or kind of analytical output or strategic view, and so the process is the same, but just the outputs are different, and maybe the roles involved are different. So it means that we are maybe more involved in the strategic changes and strategic let's say roadmaps and target architectures, but the process of running it is the same as every other change. So there is we need to prepare some specifications. So what are the questions we need to answer? What are the outputs we need, we want? What resources we need to do that, and we plan it, then we run it, and at the end there is output like you mentioned. Throughout we have also this review, so everybody can ask about it, everybody can comment. If there is a need to use some information from the repository or put some information in the repository, it's inside the process. Does it answer?
Not totally, because I think you are still talking about the architecture ideas, that you are sitting on the ERB and people are bringing the ideas. I sought to talk about that to see that when the business is coming, right, that they would like to have ideas that change this one, would like to create new products and so on, which is before any architectural decision that they are bringing, and not only strategic, they're bringing changes, and they are not change requests, that they are talking about, hey guys, we would like to, I don't know what, bring a new product into this bank and create something, and so a lot of ideas is coming in, right, which is bringing later a project, or we should be put into portfolio, and so on, so on. So somewhere there should be an EA also, right?
Yes, yes. Okay. Now I understood. I now thought that you mean just the strategic ones, but yes. But the thing you are describing, in our case, it's a part of a demand process. So we have our colleagues that play the role of catching. Their role is to catch these ideas, to sort them out, to prioritize them. We have in a close. We are the participant of that process, so they invite us as an architecture to their routines, to their tracking routines and prioritization routines. So we see what's there. We can say some comments, either that there is a risk of very big obstacle in implementation this, or some rough estimates or something like that. But they are in charge of this process of settling up what are the new ideas, and we are just contributors to this process. And
okay, thanks.
Anybody else with additional questions or comments? There are no more comments to the presentation, then I have to say, or I say a big thank you to Peter, Mario, and Jozef. It was interesting, the presentation, and more interesting the discussion at the end, because we can feel that this is a real life experience that you shared with us, and it is a value that you created during the everyday work in the bank. So thank you again, and we will meet again if you visit our club in April. There will be announcement in the website, so you can see the next topic that we will discuss in April. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks also from our side for the invitation and for the opportunity to discuss. Thanks for the questions and discussions, and I hope there was some useful information in that what we were talking about, and as Tamás said, the recording and the presentation will be available.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.